Welcome to UK Voices 22. It was meant to be another night of light-hearted American television, a carefully stage-managed appearance on the prestigious Late Show with Stephen Colbert to promote a new, sanitized Netflix project. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, glided onto the stage, a vision of practiced poise and curated empathy. But beneath the shimmering facade and the rehearsed anecdotes about archetypes and adversity, something unexpected happened. The veneer cracked. Not with a dramatic shatter, but with a series of subtle, excruciating slips, a fleeting micro-expression of contempt here, a jarringly off-key anecdote there, all silently witnessed by millions and expertly, if perhaps unintentionally, highlighted by the bewildered comedic instincts of Stephen Colbert and his guest, Jim Gaffigan. This wasn't just an interview, it was an involuntary unveiling. The very platform she sought to control became the courtroom where her carefully constructed narrative of victimhood and virtue finally began to unravel under the gentle, unassuming pressure of simple, awkward questions, and the unspoken language of a body screaming the truth its owner would never dare utter. The journey from beloved royal bride to global, polarizing figure has been, for Meghan Markle, a masterclass in narrative control. Every interview, every speech, every public appearance has been meticulously calibrated to reinforce a singular, powerful story, that of the brilliant, modern woman shackled by a bigoted, archaic institution, who bravely escaped to forge a new path of humanitarianism and authenticity with her prince. It is a compelling fairy tale for the 21st century. Yet, the performance on Colbert's stage suggests a far more complex and contradictory reality, one where the pursuit of liberation is indistinguishable from a ruthless hunger for control, and where authenticity is the most expensive product on the market. The interview began predictably enough. Colbert, the gracious host, offered softballs about life in California, the children, and the innocuous topic of her new Netflix series. Meghan's responses were polished, delivered with the cadence of a motivational speaker, each pause measured, each smile hitting its mark. But the first fissure appeared not in her words, but in the space between them. When Colbert, attempting camaraderie, made a self-deprecating joke about the absurdity of fatherhood, the camera caught Meghan's reaction. It wasn't a genuine, shared laugh. It was a performative, wide-eyed nod, a pantomime of understanding that lasted a beat too long, her eyes not crinkling with authentic mirth, but remaining sharp, analytical, scanning the audience for their reception. It was the look of an anthropologist studying a strange tribe, not a woman sharing a relatable moment. This disconnect became palpable during the now infamous jam exchange. In what should have been a charming, humanizing story, Meghan recounted a tale of making jam for her friends as a gesture of love during the pandemic. On the surface, it was a perfect anecdote for her brand, domestic, generous, wholesome. But her delivery was laced with an unmissable air of self-congratulation. She didn't just make jam, she described it as a profound act of connection, and seeing someone, framing a simple, kind gesture, as a near-evolutionary act of empathy. Colbert, to his credit, seemed slightly baffled by the gravitas assigned to preserves. His response was a comedic, exaggerated bit about the violent, passionate process of canning, a classic comedian's technique to gently puncture a ballooning sense of self-importance. Meghan's reaction was telling. Instead of rolling with the joke, joining in the laughter at the absurdity of it all, her smile tightened. A flash of something cold, annoyance, contempt, crossed her face before being instantly smoothed over. It was a microscopic moment, but it spoke volumes. The narrative was being challenged, however lightly. The story of her benevolent jam was being met not with the awed reverence she seemed to expect, but with humor. And her persona cannot tolerate being the butt of the joke, even a loving one. It revealed a stunning fragility beneath the polished exterior, an inability to engage in the kind of good-natured ribbing that is the currency of genuine human interaction, especially within the royal family she claims to have found so stifling. Then entered Jim Gaffigan. His role, seemingly as a baffled everyman observer, became the interview's most potent truth-telling device. When Meghan launched into her well-rehearsed soliloquy about the Archetypes podcast, framing it as a heroic quest to dismantle the labels that hold women back, Gaffigan listened with a poker face that slowly morphed into one of pure, unvarnished confusion. After she finished, he leaned in and deadpanned, "So, it's a podcast about words." The studio erupted in laughter. It was a perfect comedic deflation, cutting through the layers of self-serious PR speak to state a blunt, obvious truth. Meghan was visibly thrown. Her laugh was sharp, strained. She scrambled to re-anchor the conversation in her preferred jargon, emphasizing the deconstruction of stereotypes. But the damage was done. Gaffigan, with the innocence of a court jester, had asked the question millions at home were thinking. He had exposed the emperor's new clothes. Her grand mission, her life's work, was reduced to its most basic, unimpressive component. For a woman whose entire power is derived from the mastery of narrative, having that narrative simplified into meaninglessness was a profound humiliation. It wasn't an attack, it was something far more dangerous, a dismissal. This sequence validates a growing and controversial theory about Meghan Markle, that she is not a victim of a system, but a product of a very specific, very modern culture of self-aggrandizement. She speaks the language of therapy and social justice not as a means to genuine connection, but as a tool for personal branding and a shield against criticism. Any challenge, no matter how slight, is not seen as banter or dialogue, but as an existential threat to the narrative. The institution of the monarchy, with its centuries of practiced stoicism, and its requirement to subsume the individual into the institution, was always going to be the ultimate antagonist for a personality built on the foundational belief of one's own exceptionalism. The shocking secret, uncovered by Colbert and Gaffigan, wasn't a hidden affair, or a clandestine recording. It was far more subtle and far more damning. It was the revelation of a profound and irreconcilable dissonance. They revealed a woman who preaches vulnerability, but exhibits a controlled imperviousness, who champions authenticity, but performs a meticulously curated version of herself, who claims to want a simpler life while relentlessly pursuing the world's most glamorous platforms. The humiliation was not in her being caught in a lie, it was in her being caught in the truth. The truth that the persona and the person are not aligned, and the strain of maintaining the illusion is starting to show in the unguarded glances, the tense smiles, and the inability to handle the gentle, mocking love that is the bedrock of both comedy and, ironically, family. So, what are we to make of the spectacle? The promise of the title, of a shocking humiliation and uncovered secrets, was not delivered through a dramatic gotcha moment, but through a slow, excruciating, and brilliantly revealing psychological unveiling. Colbert and Gaffigan, merely by playing their roles as comedian and commentator, held up a mirror, and for the first time in a long, media-trained while, Meghan Markle, and the world, got a glimpse of the reflection without the filter. The ending of this particular chapter is not a resolution, but a confirmation. The curiosity loop, opened by the thumbnail and the title, "What Really Happened on That Show?" is closed not with a single piece of damning evidence, but with a consolidated thesis. The performance on The Late Show validates every criticism and confirms every suspicion from her detractors. It proved that the alleged antagonism is not a fabrication of a hostile press, but a discernible pattern of behavior. It is the antagonism of an individual who cannot coexist with anything she cannot control, be it a 1,000-year-old institution, a media narrative, or the tone of a comedy interview. The woman who sat across from Stephen Colbert was not the victim of the palace, nor was she the humanitarian saint she portrays herself to be. She was revealed as something arguably more ordinary and yet more tragic. A deeply fragile individual trapped in a gilded cage of her own making, performing a version of herself she believes the world demands. The bars of this cage are not protocol and tradition, but a crippling need for adoration on her own exacting terms and a paralyzing fear of being truly seen. The final, closing loop is this: Meghan Markle's greatest humiliation was not inflicted upon her by Colbert, Gaffigan, or the British press. It was self-inflicted. It was the humiliation of being witnessed, in high definition, on a global stage, trying to sell a version of reality that even the most genial comedians could instinctively see straight through. The archetype she is ultimately trapped by is not that of a duchess or a divorcee, but of the architect of her own prison, desperately and visibly straining to maintain the illusion that the doors were locked from the outside. The cage is cracked, and the world, thanks to an unlikely duo of late-night jesters, is finally peering inside.